Hey everybody, welcome to Chai After Dark. I'm Shabnam and I'm here with my co-host Sameem.
Hello.
How's it going, Sameem?
It's good. Happy 4th of July.
I know, right? Happy 4th of July week. What'd you do?
I went to a pool party in San Diego. It was so stupid. Like an actual pool party
Really?
with like 24-year-olds. Yeah,
Okay.
It was kind of wild.
Oh,
It wasn't
wow,
wild
okay.
at all. It was like an influencer spot, but it was at the Lafayette Hotel. Everybody should look it up. It's a very aesthetic, pleasing hotel. I don't know if it's independently owned, but the pool area, it's just, I can't even describe it. Like bohemian, very like upscale, but also super classy, like 50s, 60s kind of architecture and decor. So it was fun, whatever. Then we went on a boat and then saw fireworks from like 15 different locations.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we were in the middle of the San Diego Bay, so it was pretty crazy. But then eventually all you can see is smoke, like heavy smoke, because you're kind of behind the fireworks.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's what I did on
sucks.
4th of July. It was fun. Nobody said like happy 4th of July or anything. It was like somber. At least here.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, so did you meet any interesting 24-year-olds?
No, I met like these two 28-year-olds though, and I didn't do anything. But I did get their numbers, but I'm not going to text them.
Nice. Classic guy move.
Classic Sameem guy move, yeah. I'm not Denzel Washington, right? I don't fucking just show up everywhere looking for a girl I met twice.
Handing out your card to people and having them call you.
Some of the phone calls.
What did I do for
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know what you did, but tell everybody.
Okay, so I went to a barbecue, like not a family barbecue, but like a barbecue where there was families. So unlike you, it wasn't pool party hanging out with single folks. It was like family stuff, but it was cool. It was fun. I brought corn on the cob and ceviche, and people played axe throwing, and we talked about politics, and it was a fun night.
Wait, axe throwing?
Yeah.
Like real axes? Like heavy axe into a
No,
wall?
no, fake axes, like plastic axes into like a board that had like spongy needles that would like hold it.
Cool.
You know
that
what I'm
sounds kind
saying?
of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
Well, today's Thursday, July 10th, so we're a few days past.
Yeah. Well, happy belated 4th of July to everybody.
Yeah.
Everywhere. On that note, should we get started?
Yeah, what are we reviewing today? Nobody's in the news, right? So we had to pick something that was not relevant.
Totally obscure.
Totally obscure.
Yeah. So we're reviewing Mississippi Masala today, which is a 1991 movie available on Max, HBO Max, as we're calling it these days. And it was directed by Mira Nair, who's actually Zohran Mamdani's mom, funny enough. And Sameem's going to tell us about this during tea time. He's going to tell us, not D time. Sameem's going to tell us about this.
Hey, I know she
during
directed
tea
Kama
time.
Sutra, but let's relax.
I know, right? So stay tuned for that at the end of the show. And the movie stars Denzel Washington as, I guess, one of his earlier movies, right? He's Demetrius, and an actress called Sarita Choudhury as Mina, his love interest.
Yeah. Very cool. What did you think overall?
It was a cool movie, actually. Actually, really liked it. And it's funny because when I think of this movie, I thought pretty much it's probably just only South Asians that have seen this movie. But I ran it by two of my friends. One happens to be black and one happens to be white. And they both heard of it and they both saw it and they both liked it. And I was like, oh my God, I thought just South Asian people watch this, but I guess everybody's watching it.
This shit was a big deal. It was fairly old, I would say, when this movie came out, so I totally remember it because back then there was only like a handful of things in pop culture that you had to consume, right? So one of the things was, every Friday there's new movies coming out. And it wasn't like all this content shoved down your face all day, every day. So I remember when Mississippi Masala came out. I think I watched it like my junior or senior year in high school, but it came out when I was like in middle school. But dude, Denzel Washington and Sarita Choudhury, we were talking about Porn Chai and Belinda in White Lotus. I think they took the top spot.
They did.
Right?
They did. And they play that very young love well, even though you were telling me the tidbit about Denzel right before we started recording. Apparently he was like 40.
So he was born in 1954, and this movie came out in 91, so I'm assuming they recorded filmed it in 1990, so he was like 36, and she actually is 23 or 24, so she's 15 years younger than him or something. Yeah.
Wow.
Because today he's 70.
Interesting.
I looked it up like today, and she's 58, 57 or 58. Sarita Choudhury. Sarita Choudhury is British, half white British, and then her dad is Indian.
Okay. Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
She is a mixed masala, by the way. That's what Denzel Washington calls
Nice.
her, right?
All right. Yeah, that's what she tells. Yeah. She explains masala to Denzel. It's funny. All right, so let's get into it. So Mina's family at the beginning of the movie, they live in Uganda. So they had to leave Uganda after Idi Amin's 1972 order expelling all South Asians from the country. So this happened partially because her dad did a BBC interview saying that Idi Amin is evil. And so obviously he got on their radar and he had to leave. So I did a little background research because people might be wondering, what were South Asians doing in Uganda? How did this happen? So according to Wikipedia and some other basic internet sources, Idi Amin was a black supremacist, not to be confused with Clayton Bigsby, the black white supremacist from the Chappelle Show. So he was a black supremacist. And the story starts out, or I'm going to start out at this point in history. Let's just say that. South Asians first arrived in Uganda in the late 1800s after Imperial British East Africa Company, which is the colonial British company, awarded a man from Karachi, present-day Pakistan, named Alibai Mullah Jivanji with a contract to supply the labor force to build the Uganda Railway. So basically, the British colonial powers wanted to build this Uganda Railway. They gave the labor contract to a guy from Karachi. And over the 6-year period following 1895, about 32,000 workers, men from South Asia, came to work on the railroad project. And more South Asians arrived as traders also during that time, mainly from Gujarat. They were called the passenger Indians. And over time, Indians became really successful and wealthy in Uganda. And they kind of operated as overseers, and they worked for the British colonial government. And they were like narking on the local black population. And so the British regime obviously rewarded them financially. And so that created more tension between the South Asian population and the local black people from Uganda. So this created a lot of resentments and Indophobia. And it eventually led to a political climate that gave way to Idi Amin's black supremacy. In 1971, he orchestrated a coup d'etat, rising to power and issuing an order to expel all South Asians. But then, like around 10 years later, there was a Tanzanian invasion of Uganda, and Idi Amin was exiled to Libya, and a lot of South Asians ended up returning over the course of the 1980s and 90s. But the first few scenes of the movie, you see them actually leaving Uganda. Her dad's really reluctant because his family has been there for generations, and they get really harassed, and it's like a dangerous prospect for them to leave by bus into wherever they leave to. And then as the movie goes on, we kind of learn they end up in England for a while, and then they end up in Mississippi. But it's pretty crazy story.
That first scene where they're getting onto the bus, I'm like not ready for anything super sad. I thought they were gonna like kill the mom. They pulled her off the bus and stole her chain necklace. But it wasn't anything like that, because Sophie and I were just talking about Hotel Rwanda, and I was telling her about the civil war in the late 80s, early 90s over there. Yeah. But it looks like Uganda and South Asians had more of a just get the fuck out of the country type moment. Like,
right.
Yeah. But this was going on in other countries as well, by the way. Like in the UK, they were trying to repatriate South Asians as well during the same time. So this sort of resentment has been now rearing its ugly head, I guess, forever. Like it never really stopped. It's just that there was no internet back then, so people don't know this short nationalistic mindset's been going on for a long time, right? But it's because they were overwhelmed too with South Asians making all the money.
Yeah, I'm feeling like maybe anecdotally I've seen this enough to say that South Asians, the people that end up staying, are either extremely, extremely elite or they're more middle class, because you see like Or I don't know, is it just natural that people take economic opportunity and they go somewhere? I don't know, because I know in England, I get the sense the South Asians in England are not as doing as well economically as the ones in America, right? Like the ones in America are like model minority or whatever, right? But I'm just trying to make sense of that, maybe because everywhere we would escape to on foot that's easy to get to, where people without resources could go, is not a place that necessarily you want to or can go, right? So the places you can go require resources, so it's all the people with resources that are going to those places. I don't know, I'm just trying to make sense of that. What do you think?
I think you're correct. And once they leave Uganda, they open in America, in Mississippi, as motel workers, because they have family members that open motels in Mississippi. So that's how they got to the United States. It wasn't their motel. So he saw economic opportunity, but it was forced that he had to leave. But I think you're right. Our parents only came here to be engineers. They didn't come here to live some sort of American dream lifestyle. It was economic opportunity, 95% of it. I don't know.
And education,
right? Which ties into economic fruition for them. But I've seen South Asians in every corner of the world. Every single country I've ever been to, there's Indians or Pakistanis or Bengalis working. And like obscure town in New Zealand, I remember I was driving from north to south, and this town was so remote, like 4 hours between cities. And of course, the convenience store in the middle where we stopped at was a cute little Indian family.
Yeah. Oh, you know, when I went up to Weed, there's not in Weed itself.
Man, you consumed so much that you became it.
No, my husband's from a town called Weed, and when I went up there, not in that specific town, but a town nearby, there's one Indian restaurant, and it has like thousands of reviews. And restaurants up there tend to not get thousands of reviews because the population's small. But probably every Desi person that drove from California to like Oregon or Washington stopped at that place and gave it a review. But that uncle, he was so excited to talk to me. It was incredible.
Is it good?
It was hilarious, and it was pretty good. Yeah, and he gave us free stuff because I talked to him. Yeah. Like he gave us free ras malai and stuff like that. I was like,
we're gonna try to stop at this town called Button Willow today or tomorrow when we go from LA to the Bay Area later in the week. And there's an Indian restaurant that has all these features and magazines and stuff, and it's been catering to Indian truck drivers because so many truck drivers are Indian. Actually.
Oh, interesting.
So in Button Willow, if you're ever driving on 5 between San Francisco and LA, you can stop at this Indian restaurant and you can see it from the freeway. And my parents have stopped there. They're the ones that told me about it. And they said it was really good.
Oh, okay.
So Indians are everywhere. Pakistanis are everywhere. We're hard workers. And think about like how they even got to Uganda. It was a slave trade. And Russell Peters has that huge bit, right, about slave trades where they took Indians and they're like, Indians are like, no, we'd rather make the money. And that's what ended up happening in Uganda. They're like, no, we're going to take over and make all this money. And they had a nice place, by the way. It looked like Hawaii. I don't know if that was actually filmed in Uganda, but
no, I know it was beautiful. It was super, super beautiful. So
South Asians rule the world.
So I have one more story about South Asians in weed. So there's this famous cafe there, okay? And it recently got bought by Desi people. And so all of a sudden they also have samosas on the menu and stuff, but it's still like a regular diner. But me and Brian went in there. I don't think I look like super South Asian, and obviously he doesn't. I can be ethnically ambiguous, right? So they didn't change anything when I was there. But then a few minutes after we got there, we sat down and everything. There was a South Asian family that came in. And they put on Bhangra, and then they changed this snack rotating picture menu to feature the samosas and stuff, like they were catering. I swear to God. And then this family sat down, and then the only thing they ordered, like the only reason they came there was to order milkshakes.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this is the most hilarious thing
They're
ever.
like, we don't want the chili cheeseburger and stuff. Or whatever else.
And they're like, we don't want no samosas. We just want like cookies and cream milkshakes.
It's like, if they see an opportunity, they will. Like, you know that Casa Lahori restaurant we've been to in San Diego, by the way?
Yeah.
You know how it's halal and everything is, it seems like it's catered towards Muslims and stuff. It's owned by Hindu people who are...
They're just like, they're just, taking an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity because I think this area has like a lot of brown Muslims, this north part of San Diego and San Marcos and Vista as well. So and they're right in the middle of it, Rancho Bernardo. But I was talking to the guy, and he's like, "No, I'm from India." Like he's telling me about like his what do they call it, the temple that they go to. Yeah,
okay.
He's like everything's halal and stuff.
Temple.
Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, great."
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
But yeah, we'll see an opportunity and we'll take it.
That's what we do. All right. So Mina's family moves to Mississippi and settles into some Patel's shady motel, but her dad is still overcome with fighting legally for his property back in Uganda. When I wrote this note, I thought I was being funny. I thought it wasn't a Patel. I was just going to say it was a Patel. But turns out the person's name is actually Patel.
We know
later
this, right? Like I think we talked about this during our Chippendales series where we actually had the numbers of how many uncles came and opened hotels, and 80% of them are last name Patel, and 100% of them are Gujarati.
Yeah.
So just it is what it is.
Yeah. So as the new regime comes into power in Uganda, her dad starts feeling like maybe he can fight for his right to get recourse for his property and get his property back. And also he's still obsessed with that. He's like yearning for his home country and all of that. So meanwhile, now Mina is like a grown-up girl in her 20s, and she's stealing Patel uncle's car, driving around with it, and she gets into a car accident with Demetrius. And Demetrius is played by Denzel Washington in his late 30s, which he looks like he's in his 20s, by the way.
Do you think the reason why I looked it up was I thought he looked older? His first scene is like in 1979, like his first film credit.
Interesting.
So this is like 12, 13 years later. But
yeah.
He didn't do much in the 80s. Like he became really big like in 1988 or so.
Interesting. So the Indians in America tell Mina's dad and his friends that Americans are really fucking litigious, and he needs to be prepared to get sued for medical bills from whiplash, or as the uncle says, he will say he got a chatka.
Yeah.
And there's some good onomatopoeia words in Urdu, and chatka is like a great word for whiplash.
That's exactly what it is, and I know that word as well. I feel like I would use it. By the way, these Desi uncles,
so good.
I don't even know what to say. Every time we watch a movie or a show, they put these token guys in there, and it's another DJ uncle. It's another cool ass uncle that I don't.
Yeah.
And there's like scenes of them getting trashed, and they're just such fuckboy uncles.
Yeah.
And they're in every episode or every movie we watch that's South Asian. The side characters are always hilarious.
Yeah, so hilarious.
The guy with he had a mullet. My favorite one is that tall, skinny one. It's like the mullet and like earrings, and
his wife won't fuck him.
No, that's the guy. That's their family member that gets married, right? That's such a strange side story, by the way. Like it's not part of the movie, but there's like two scenes where the wife won't fuck him, and they just got married.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, it's insane. Okay, so one of the uncles realizes that Demetrius owns the company that cleans the hotel carpets. So they're like, we'll talk to him and tell him like, hey, please don't sue us. And if you don't sue us, we'll be cool with you continuing cleaning the carpets, and we'll have you to clean the carpets more. And so they're like, okay, cool. This is like a good plan. And also, did you notice Denzel wears his pants way too high in the movie?
But that was sort of fashion in the 80s, right? Like the workout videos, they had their shorts pulled up to their belly buttons.
Yeah. And then in the 90s, they went below your ass. So I guess,
now they're like half-half. Some people are wearing really baggy pants, and some people are still wearing skinny jeans. So I don't actually know what is in fashion. Email us, chatafterdark@chatafterdark.com. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. So Demetrius is cool with that because he's trying to build his carpet cleaning business, and he's an upstanding guy. So that's that. So Mina, she's, like I said, in her mid-20s or so. So her parents are obviously trying to get her married off. But she's a dark-skinned Indian girl. So she's undesirable. Even though she's really, really pretty and she's really hot.
She's so hot. Like, it's unbelievable. And today she's hot, too. She's like 58. I looked her up, and she's like so sultry. Like, it's like older Indian auntie. She's kind of like Indrani Mukherjee. Like, she has that vibe.
Oh,
no, she doesn't have a murderous vibe. Sorry. Let me take that back. I'm
just in her hotness.
Yeah, I'm just judging women by how they look only. She's hot. What do you want me to say, dude? She's in the movies.
Yeah, but so this reminded me of there's a comedian named
Mm-hmm.
Osama something, and then there's a Chinese woman comedian who is from China. She has an accent. I can't remember her name. I meant to look it up before this, but they too do a bit together where they talk about colorism in Chinese and South Asian cultures because Osama's family, I believe, is from Bangladesh, and he's basically like, if a girl's super light skinned, she can have like one eye, and your mom will be like, look at this beautiful girl. And if she's like a dark skinned girl, she'll be like so hot, and they'll be like, see, she's okay. She's dark skinned or whatever.
But you're right.
Yeah.
These two aunties say it,
Yeah.
right? And this is when the movie
Yeah.
starts getting. It's like 20 minutes in, by the way. There's not a lot of Denzel and Sarita Choudhury yet. They only have one scene together. But these two aunties are like, if Sarita character is not going to get with this dude named Harry Patel, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
This
Harry
is like well
Patel,
before Harry Potter and shit. Like, this is what we used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Haris Putter and Harry Patel. That's what we used to call Harry Potter. But apparently, Mira Nair had some foresight.
Yeah. And then the aunties are basically like, you can't be dark and have no money and expect to marry Harry Patel.
Shabnam's accent is back,
Yes.
everybody. I haven't heard that accent in a few months.
But it's exactly what they said, right?
It's so over the top. If we
Yeah.
were in high school and we were going to do like a scene on like ridiculous Indian aunties, that's how it would be. But
Yeah.
this is like in 1990, 1991. So this is actually like pretty, like people didn't know this. I can't
Yeah.
believe it's just
Yeah.
so similar to today. All these like
Yeah.
2 generations later.
But so obviously Harry's at this Desi party.
It's a wedding.
and
It's the dude's
It's-
wedding.
yeah.
The guy whose wife won't fuck him.
The guy
Mr.
who-
Patel.
who-
The
yeah,
guy that
okay,
owns the
yeah.
motel, their family friend.
Right. So at the reception and the wedding, Harry sees Minna, and obviously she's hot, so he likes her. He doesn't give a crap about this like auntie BS. So he asks her to go out later, and they go out and they go to this club. They go dancing, and who's there?
Denzel.
Demetrius, Denzel. And so, of course, Demetrius can dance better than Harry Patel. So Minna starts getting down with him
Man,
instead of Harry.
I know. So let's, you know what? I was watching this movie and I was only watching it last night, and I watched it before, but I didn't understand nuance and picking up girls and stuff like that, obviously. But
Yeah.
she's so selfish. The first like 30-ish minutes of this movie, she takes Mr. Patel's car, hits Denzel's van, never says
Yeah.
sorry, never says
Yeah.
anything. She yells at Mr. Patel. She basically is like, go
Yeah.
fuck yourself. Everyone's telling Mr. Patel it's his fault. Like they're gaslighting him. It's his
Yeah.
fault. She disappears. And then she never said sorry to even Denzel. He asks her how she is. She never asks him how he is. She's just so selfish. Then she goes on a date and straight ditches her date to grind up on
I know.
the best looking guy in this town.
Denzel Washington. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Harry Patel in a tux, by the way. He looks like Indian
Yeah.
James Bond. By the way, black people, holy shit, it's like so much fun. Like they walked in, everybody was doing like the electric shuffle. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, dude.
I know.
Every stereotype you can think of was in this movie, by the way.
No, I know. It's good. Well, basically what we see is like Demetrius's ex-girlfriend ends up coming in. She's like a local hot black celebrity woman,
Alicia.
right? And so named Alicia, yeah. And she's shading the crap out of him, basically. It's so brutal. And she's like with a guy with like Jerry curls who looks like he's managing her. Like, I don't even know what's going on there, but he's obviously growing his business, but she's more famous than him, more successful. So she's like shitting on him constantly. So he kind of uses Minna to dance with him. And he's like, oh, come dance with me. And he's like dancing with her all close, even though this is like the first time they've ever danced together, to make his ex Alicia jealous.
Yeah.
And Harry's sitting there like a loser bump on the log.
Yep.
Like, what the fuck am I doing here? And then he tries to go up to Minna and he's like, Minna, I'm leaving. And she's like, okay, go.
She was like, are you sure you don't want to
She's
stay? And I was like, what's he going to do? Just sit there and watch you? Like, I don't understand why he would stay. It made no
Yeah,
sense.
I know.
She's
yeah,
troublesome.
it's crazy.
Like, she's such a, like,
She's a hot 24-year-old,
Exactly.
right? Like that's what she's
yeah,
acting.
this is the only issue I had with the movie is her personality. It wasn't like sweet or anything. I think it was really meant to be a very simple love story. The simplest love story you can
Yeah.
actually think of because two people meet each other. She even says, you've never asked me anything about myself. to Denzel
Yeah.
while they're telling each other they love each other. So the movie escalates the romance. Like, that's the only thing that's not true. Everything else is too true. Like the Patels, the motels, and the Ugandan backstory. Everything is so true and accurate. I don't know. I guess I'm not super into love at first sight right now, so who knows?
No, I know. I kind of picked up on what you're saying too, but at the end, she has this conversation with her parents about how she's always just kind of gone along with what they've wanted and she's never really done anything for herself. And so I almost feel like her attitude plays into that. Nobody really asks about her and she doesn't really ask about anyone. It's almost like that kind of thing's built into her personality in a sense, but they didn't really develop it. So I get what you're saying.
I mean, in American culture or Western culture, whatever you want to call it, when people start dating at a young age, they're not dating for intent to marry who they want to marry, right? And then in this culture, when they find out pretty soon that she's dating Demetrius, they're just like, it's over, right? Everybody's world falls apart. So I think that's the difference. She's like, why can't I just be with him? Like, without thought, you know? I totally understand that, like when everybody has their young loves and things like that. So
yeah,
she never got to have it.
Yeah. Right. So later her mom asks her when she's like back at home how the date went with Harry. Because like basically Demetrius ends up dropping her back to the hotel where she lives. She sits by the pool. Her mom comes and talks to her about it. And she's kind of like whatever about Harry. But you can tell she's thinking a lot about like Uganda and their beef with black people and all of that. So she's thinking about all those things. She kind of asks her mom what happened to her dad's best friend, her uncle, who's black in Uganda. And her mom's like, what made you think about that? And all of that. And her mom kind of like gears the conversation back to Harry because her mom's like really wants her to marry this suitable Indian boy, Harry Patel, and Sarita, Mina could care less.
Yeah. And you're totally correct. Like the movie would flash back to Uganda almost every 8 to 10 minutes. So she does a really amazing job of like visual storytelling, I would say. It's not just about Mina and Demetrius, right? It's about their love affecting the entire village around them, including people that have no, almost like who cares who you're with, right? But people are just like having meltdowns and stuff. So Uganda would have been the same thing, right? If she had found some Ugandan lover, they would have had a meltdown out there too. Yeah. Even though he keeps saying, I'm Ugandan, I'm not American, I'm Ugandan, the dad. So
yeah, and the dad has like a lot of trauma and injustice that sits with him at that time. But there's a flashback later in the movie too, where they show Idi Amin saying that he doesn't like South Asians because they have all the wealth and they have a lot of wealth. I don't know about all, but they have a lot of wealth and they don't let their daughters marry into the Ugandan culture, right? And that is, Desis are very, like, they want to be insular. I mean, even amongst Desis, right? There's a lot of very traditional people that are like, you need to marry someone from your city or region within South Asia, not even outside of that, right? So they do that a lot. He was right about that. And it's fucking annoying to people, so we should get over that. Yeah. I mean, me and you have, so I mean, that's that.
That's kind of parallels in today's country, right? Like, all the negative comments online and all the trolls, I would say, and the way people are getting worked up, they're saying things to the effect of, we're going to have immigrants here, but they're not going to assimilate, et cetera, et cetera. So the rhetoric is not that far off a dictator, Idi Amin, from late 60s and 70s. So like I said, history repeats itself, but it doesn't even repeat itself. I think this is just how the world is. And now with what's going on in this country, people, that's just how they're wired. It's like, oh, somebody is...
Who knows when we're going to get an executive order saying God knows what.
We've already had executive orders that are quite like strict, straight up Muslim ban. Did we forget this? Like 10 years ago, we got
I know.
a lot of Muslims banned from this country. And even to this day, you can't come in from 7 or 8 countries. So just, we don't talk about it, I guess. I don't know.
So eventually one of the uncles talks to Demetrius about not suing in exchange for allowing them to continue to work to clean the hotel carpets. And it's such a weird uncle-ish to black person conversation where the uncle goes, us colored people must stick together. And then the guy working with Demetrius is like, power to the people. Yeah. And it's so like cringy because you see like these two cultures, they mean well and they're trying to connect, but they're the connection's off, right? And I'm just like, ugh, it's like really cringy. It was cringy.
They haven't met a lot of Indians at that point, right? But I kind of agree, man. If you're in Mississippi, if you're not white, then you're colored. And he says that. So I agree, especially at that time.
Yeah. You're a person of color.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to like, you know, whatever. But anyways.
I get it. Like, is colored a complete off the wall reference? Like,
it is in America. In America it is, but in South Africa, that's literally what they call like, so
also where they keep calling Pakistanis and Indians Asians, right? And here we're all Indian, even Pakistanis.
Yeah. Anyway, so Minna calls Demetrius at the hotel to say like, hey, thanks for dropping me off the other night. And he ends up inviting her to his dad's birthday. And this is what you see, what you're saying, like the romance escalates really quickly because she's just this very flirty, apprehensive little girl. And he's like, hey, come to my family dinner. And she ends up going. But his ex is also invited there by his dad.
Yeah, what the fuck?
And
come on, Dad.
Yeah, and so he's also wants her there to make the ex jealous. So there's this whole other side to this romance developing. But both of them are actually individually kind of shady with each other in the beginning.
We don't even know what happens because this movie never gets deeper than that first initial spark. So,
yeah. So Minna has this conversation with her dad over ramen, which is hilarious. I like that it was over ramen. So her dad basically wants her to go to college, right? But Minna knows they don't have the money. And so she's like, you know, it's fine. And then he's kind of pushing her and she tells him like, look, when you win your case in Uganda and you get the money from your property, then I'll think about college. So you can tell she knows they don't have money and she doesn't want to make life difficult for her parents. So she's sacrificing herself in a sense. I don't know. She's an interesting character that, like you said, we don't really scratch deeper into.
She's a pretty flawed person, which is great. So that's what makes the movie so relatable, and it's like such a true sort of representation of what we're talking about. Nothing is all that extreme, I guess, other than their love story picking up steam really quick. But that's how movies are.
Yeah. So on the way to the party, Minna tells Demetrius that she's been in Mississippi for 3 years. And before that, she was in England. And before that, she was in Africa. And she's actually never been to India. And she tells him she's a mixed masala. And she explains to him masala is like a mixture of spices. And he's like, I like that. You're mixed masala. So then we go to the party and we meet Demetrius's family. They're doing like a barbecue and they have all the works and his little brother's there and a couple other people in his family. Demetrius's little brother at one point starts talking to her, asking her about where she's from. She tells the brother she's never been to India. And it's funny because the brother goes, oh, you're just like us. We're from Africa and we've never been to Africa. And I was like, oh, that's kind of
it's pretty true.
Interesting parallel.
Yeah, it's completely true. I think people don't realize, you know, how we're like there's African Americans, but then there's like Indian Ugandans, right? So like it's so crazy to think about, right? So this whole time, by the way, Denzel Washington keeps saying stop asking her questions, but it's like, dude, if you meet someone, how long are you gonna wait to ask them where they're from? You're gonna wait like a year? What are you talking about? That's literally normal ass questions.
I think he just didn't want her to feel interrogated or for his brother to say. Yeah, or for his brother to say something that she might feel, like you said, uncomfortable about. This reminded me of the story. Remember I told you I slapped my brother? That I think I might have said this on an episode that's coming out in a few days, but we recorded it yesterday. So I told you I slapped my brother when I was 10.
Yeah, you did say that.
But yeah, I did say that. But he slapped me when I was 5. And that was because there was an auntie that my mom introduced us to, and she's South Asian, but her family lived in South Africa. Okay, so kind of similar story, probably similar like reason why they went there for work or whatever. And for some reason, the auntie was telling us she's from South Africa, and my mom was like, "Oh, see, Shabnam, this auntie's from South Africa." And then I said, "Well, then how come she's not black?" And then my brother slapped me because he thought it was rude. So maybe Denzel Washington thought his brother was going to say something rude, like that.
Yeah, and then the dad
But I was 5. So.
I mean, you're okay. You could slap whoever you want when you're 5, I think. But and it reminded me of the Nutty Professor, where all the family is around Eddie Murphy's girlfriend that he brings. Have you seen that movie? The Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
And then because the grandfather looked the same age as the dad. And the grandfather kept asking if she's from
yeah.
Indianola, which I guess is a town in Mississippi. And then he's like, no, she's from India. So I agree. He's like, stop interrogating the girl that I brought. But that would not be my first move, to bring a girl to my family's barbecue or something like that. It seems like really off-kilter.
Your dad's birthday?
Yeah, my dad's birthday. I'd be like, no, dude, let's wait like 7 to 12 years before we all get together. That's how South Asians do it, right? You get to the very end and then you pop her out or pop him out at some rando event.
Yeah, but usually that period is like 7 to 12 days.
for super conservative people, and apparently Denzel and Demetrius and Mina.
Sarita.
Sarita.
Yeah. So Demetrius's ex comes in late to the party, and right when they're heading out. So obviously he's just like, "Hey, Alicia," and then he walks out.
I don't think he
with
says
Mina
anything. I
arm
think
in
she
arm.
says, "Hey, rabbit."
Oh,
and then
okay.
he's like,
"Oh,
"Peace,
that's how."
look
Okay.
at my girl. Look at my. I gotta go.
Yeah.
You got your Jerry curl man, by the way.
Look at my.
We didn't make fun of the guy's Jerry.
I got my hot ass Indian girl.
Yeah, like no hair up here, and then he had a Jerry curl mullet. That's Soul Glow stuff. That's in with Eddie Murphy again. Coming to America. Remember the Soul Glow guy?
Yeah.
That's what they had. I guess it was super popular in the 90s, early 90s.
That's funny. Yeah. So they walk out and they walk along the bayou on this romantic walk, and they talk to each other for like probably one of the first times ever, and they kiss for the first time, and then they start making out. And I'm like, can you imagine? Okay, who is Sarita Choudhury? What has she done after this? And what did she do before this? Because wouldn't that be so insane? Like, you're cast in this movie and then it's like you have to make out with Denzel.
This is her first big role, yeah. But so he was already
wild.
famous because he was in a movie called Glory. And we watched Glory when I was in middle school. And I think he was nominated for an Academy Award, or he won an Academy Award. But
wow.
So yes, you're totally correct. He was already famous. It is one of his first roles. So seems like he got more famous into his 30s rather than his 20s. But yeah, you're totally right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, what else is there? Like, is there anything similar? Not really. Like, George Clooney, maybe. Who wants to make out with George Clooney, though?
Well, okay, then the hilarious part is after they're done making out, like they talk to each other, and he makes fun of the uncle, and he's like, all of us colored people need to stick together. And I was like, what? He did the accent.
It took me a minute.
Hilarious.
I was like, wait, why does he say that? Because the uncle just said it to him in the previous scene.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
It's like from Bad Boy Billionaires when 2 different white executives do 2 different Indian accents, but they're doing it into an interview. It's not even a movie. So, people are very comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. So then they showed these couple of scenes where I guess their hotel is a place where like sex workers bring their johns. Is that what they
customer
were
is always right?
Yeah. And then the guy,
he's like 1 hour or 2 hours.
They come with their mistresses or yeah. You can stay just for like 1 hour.
He looked at her
hours,
and he asked in 1 hour, 2 hour, or overnight, and he looks at her and he looks back and he's like 1 hour. So yeah, customer's always right, and the Indian uncle was so over the top, like trying to get this guy. And by the way, it was $13. That was the bill.
Yeah, that's insane. Wow. Okay, so then Demetrius comes. Then what happened? I was confused. Do you know?
He comes in and he's like, I missed you. I couldn't wait to see you whenever is the next day. So this is after his family's house and after the walk on the bayou. And he says, will you come to Biloxi with me? Have you ever been to Biloxi? And she's like, no, I haven't.
Oh, yeah.
So then he's like, no, I don't want the room. And he pulls his hat down and he leaves. I think then they call each other and then they have phone sex.
Yeah. And then, they have phone sex and she's not wearing any underwear.
No, she's not. And she has a tan line.
Yeah.
Like a panty tan line. And I was like, oh my God, where was she getting this tan line? At the motel pool?
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny.
The prostitute motel pool. I don't think this is a prostitute
but did you
motel,
notice?
by the way. I think it's like anything goes. It's a motel.
Yeah, I think it's anything goes. Yeah. But did you also see that she had some 90s fuzz in her armpit? I was like, oh.
Yeah, I saw a little bit. Yeah.
I
think, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. We're all women clean shaven, and I wasn't with any women in the 80s. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either, but.
Yeah. So I was that phone
yeah.
sex? It was more so like Biloxi trip phone call.
Yeah, but I think it was going to turn into phone sex, but then her dad ended up calling her, so she had
It
to
cuts
like put
away,
the phone
yeah.
down.
But it was kind of strange. He's like, "What are you wearing?" And she's like, "T-shirt," and he's like,
Yeah.
"Me too." But he's also wearing shorts, and she's not. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he didn't fully describe.
That's funny. Yeah, exactly. Which why do all men ask that? That's
I don't
like
ask.
everybody.
Who asks
It's like
that?
what? Every fucking man asks that. Okay,
Wait,
like
people call you and they're
whatever.
asking you what you're wearing. Really?
That's a thing all men ask.
Maybe like 30 years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
I would
don't know.
never ask
Anyways,
someone what they're
moving
wearing
on.
unless it's like, part of the shtick. I don't know.
So in the
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
and then this is where the uncle
Yeah.
can't the uncle can't get laid. Poor uncle.
Yeah. He just like climbs. He
I really
climbs
don't know
on
what
top
else to
of
say
her.
about that.
I don't even understand. I was like, what was he about to do? And then, and then he starts watching TV.
You Yeah. Anyways, okay. So then this Jetka uncle comes back. He's the funny one. And he's like, he sees like Mina and Demetrius kind of getting together and he thinks they're together. And then he tells the other uncles, and they're like, no, Mina's out of
Yeah.
town. But actually, Mina and Demetrius are on a sexapade in one of the hotel rooms.
Yeah.
And damn, that was a steamy scene.
Hey, who forwarded through? Let us know. Or who watched it. Weren't you watching this with your mom, by the way?
So initially I watched it with my mom and then I watched it again without my mom.
Yeah.
So I watched the sex scene and I noticed that, so he's wearing some kind of like boner blocking thing.
Yeah.
And it has like a string and you can see
I did not see that.
the like strap.
Really?
Yeah. You can see the strap around his hip. Yeah.
Oh, shit. No, I just saw like she exposed nipple and then he like kind of kissed it and then I kind of like blacked out and then the scene ended. I don't have like a full narration of the scene in my head. I just have like kind of that moment, and I guess you have the hip thong moment.
Yeah, because then they like go down the body and he's like touching her leg and like her foot and all this stuff, and then you see like the side of his hip and he has the strap from whatever thing that he was wearing. I was like, all right.
There you go. It can't be all real and stuff. Maybe, who knows? It seemed
Yeah.
real. So
Yeah, maybe they were just expecting everybody to black out. Like,
man,
right?
I know, just like, oh shit. I wonder if like any of our uncles or dads went to the theaters together and watched this date night or something, because everybody we know was pretty adulty by this point. I was like 12 or 13, so I don't know. We were definitely going to the movies. I watched Jurassic Park like 2 years after this in the movies, but that was my first movie I watched in the theaters. So I wonder if people are actually watching this in the theaters. Anybody that we know, I would love to know.
Yeah. So he sings her happy birthday after they're done having sex, and she gets this flashback of her dad singing her happy birthday, which is also weird. Why would you get a flashback of your dad singing you happy birthday when your man singing you happy birthday in bed? That's a weird flashback, but whatever. And it's of Idi Amin saying Indians are rich and Africans are poor and they don't let their daughters marry Africans. That was what was on the TV at that time. And so that's kind of where that scene came from that we touched on earlier.
I don't know. It was like very Marilyn Monroe. Yeah, it was.
It was weird.
Out, but she has daddy issues. That's a very direct scene. That's what it's saying. Even though her dad's around and shit, she still has daddy issues.
Yeah. So the next morning, the uncles bust in on Demetrius and Mina, and one of the uncles and Demetrius start fighting.
This is like wild, man.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It's like Demetrius is like kicking his ass, obviously. Yeah. But then they call the police on him. They call the police on a black man. It's like, what the fuck is going on? This is the kind of shit they see people do that is...
Well, we've seen white people do this too. We've seen other people do this as well. Like that.
I know, but what happened to all the colored people need to stick together? What happened to that?
I don't understand. Like, if my friend or my family member's daughter was banging some black guy in a motel, what's going to compel you to open the door, especially when she's like 24 or 25? It's such a strange compulsion. Like, I don't want to see anything. I don't want to know anything. I would run away as fast as I can. And they opened the door and started kicking his ass. And then they got arrested, Demetrius and Mina.
Yeah.
And the cop was like, "Shut up or I'll take you away for whoring."
Yeah. What the hell? It was so
It was
weird.
A wild ass scene.
But,
yeah.
Well, I think Yeah, and so she tells the police it was consensual, I guess, right? Because they take her in and they both get released, I'm assuming, because she tells the police, like, it's consensual and she lives at the hotel, whatever, right? So she gets them both out of trouble. But she's obviously pissed and, she's like annoyed now because, like, everybody knows. And meanwhile, his friend drives him home and his friend's like, what is wrong with you? You better leave these fucking foreigners alone. They ain't nothing but trouble.
He was the power to the people guy, though. So I guess he's changing his mind. And he was hitting on her relentlessly. And
relentlessly.
Every time he was basically like, can we fuck? And then he told Demetrius, he was like, what are you, a priest? So I don't understand why he got all mad. He's the one that told him to do it.
Yeah. But I think he wanted Demetrius to hit it and quit it, not like love with
Take her to Biloxi on a beautiful. Man, I need to get to Biloxi. I didn't know it was like some romantic ass town.
I know. Next stop, Biloxi. So Mina argues with her parents and tells her parents that she's done everything their way and she's stuck here with them and she's not happy and she hasn't been happy and she's finally in love with Demetrius. And she's like, that's not a crime, is it? And then her mom says, you call this love when all you've done is bring shame on us?
There we go.
And she says, I didn't do anything. They barged in. And then the dad says, don't answer back. Have the decency to be sorry. And she says, I'm sorry about this mess, but I'm not sorry I'm in love with him. And then the mom says, who is he? What about his family? And she says, this is America, Mom. Nobody cares, which is like the stupidest thing to say. She should say his family's nice and he's a nice person with a good job and a business and
What's
an
she going to say? He's a black
that?
family? That's never, like, that conversation would just end if she said that.
No, obviously they know he's black, right? But she should tell them that, like, he has a really nice family. I had dinner with
Have
his
you met
dad's
aunties and uncles?
Okay, look.
If it was that easy, then everybody would just say that.
Well, it's better than saying this is America, Mom, nobody cares. How's that helpful?
I don't know, man. I feel like that auntie needs to.
I'm
You're
just
in
saying,
a motel
I
in Mississippi.
introduced-
Who gives a shit who your daughter's with? You're not even part of any community right now.
So I'm just saying, I introduced my non-Desi man to my family. And when my mom says, who is he? What's his family like? I didn't say this is America, Mom, nobody cares.
Yeah, but your mom wasn't yelling at you. That's why. Like, she's being reactive because she's getting yelled at.
But I said nice things, right? And like,
I
said nice things. I didn't say.
I think you think that the mom is asking her in a informational way. She's asking her in a don't answer this question kind of way. She's saying, what about our family? She's not saying what his family's like. She's made up her mind. I think that's why she's yelling back, it's America. Like she's cutting through the riffraff. The mom's not saying it in a genuine way.
That's true, I get
Like you would sit down on a couch and you'd be like, oh, tell me about his family. If she actually wanted to know about his family. She wouldn't yell in your face.
Yeah. All right. So anyways, so then the mom says, we care. We are your parents. And I guess to your point, they
weren't ever going to accept him. I think it's very obvious. We talk about it nonstop.
Yeah. So the aunties are also talking shit. Obviously that's what aunties do. And so they're like, can you believe she left Harry Patel for a black? And I'm like, okay, this is like disgustingly accurate, right? So the uncles basically fire Demetrius from the hotels. And this was a really interesting conversation because Demetrius's dad's telling him, you should have known your place and basically not hooked up with this girl. But then Demetrius's mom disagrees and she's like, the days of slavery are over. Why are you telling him to know his place? Like he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, this is like really interesting, this montage of the fallout from them hooking up. It affects Demetrius's business. It affects his entire family dynamic. Obviously, we just talked about Mina's family dynamic being thrown off kilter as well. The strangest thing about this scene wasn't really the dad. I mean, it's like, okay, he's like, don't mess with foreigners. I guess that's what people say that. But then the Chamber of Commerce comes in and he's like, hey, we can't give you a loan. Why would the Chamber of Commerce care if a black person was fucking an Indian woman in Mississippi in 1991? That seemed a little well over the top. A white Chamber of Commerce person? It's all part of the same scene, right?
Yeah, but I think what happened there is that he lost his customers because his customers were these Indian hotels, right? So then the white banker comes in and is like, I need payment on the loan, and he basically can't give payment because he lost his customers, right? So then the white banker guy starts lecturing him and is like, I worked really hard for what I have, and so you should work hard too. And it's like, I'm sure you did not work hard at all, and I'm sure he worked a lot harder than you. So that was like,
I know.
really
That's the first thought I had. I was
too.
like, you got an entry level job at a bank and you stayed there, bro. That's what you did.
It's probably because he probably got it through his
exactly.
contacts and his
Nobody I'm sorry, dude. Bank tellers are real people too. But what I'm saying is, I don't know what hard work you're doing. Banks close at 5, and then you're the fuck out of there. There's no late hours.
Yeah. So he tries to go visit Mina, but the uncle at the front desk calls her dad to come out and talk to him. And they end up having a conversation. And this was really interesting too, because it's like Desi dad versus like American guy who wants to date his daughter. But then there was also aspects of it that were like black man versus Desi immigrant. So the dad ends up saying things like, I used to be young and think that I could change the world as well. And her dad has all these flashbacks of Uganda where he was hanging out with his black friends there at a party. And then he ended up getting arrested because of the BBC interview where he talked about Idi Amin being evil. So the point is that there's all this like intermingling of like history and race and culture. And Denzel Washington tells him at one point, your daughter's grown. You should let her do what she wants, which is nothing any Desi man is ever going to go for, any Desi uncle, right? It was really interesting. I don't know.
He's going to take her back to Uganda around other black men. I'm sorry, it's like such a stupid joke, but the point of the movie, by the way, throughout, which we talked about in the beginning, is that he's suing the Ugandan government trying to get his property back, and he finally gets a letter a few minutes before this scene where they say, hey, you can show up at the high court in September and plead your case. So after this whole like Denzel Washington banging my daughter situation, he's like, okay, I got the letter, but he hadn't told the mom yet, right? So then they try to go. But I'm just like, you're going to run away to a country filled with black people. I don't know, dude. It just sounds really strange if I say it out loud like that. Like, what, she's going to marry an Indian guy in Uganda? What are you talking about?
I mean, probably they'll find another Harry Patel, right?
Because like you said in the beginning, all the Indian Ugandans started going back in the 80s and 90s after Idi Amin was out of power. But it's strange. I understand where he's coming from because he was born in Uganda. I totally understand that.
But you also see that he actually loves black people and he loves Uganda, but he has this one friend of his that he's like holding a grudge against who told him, you need to leave the country. He's telling his friend, Uganda is my home. And his friend says, not anymore. Yeah. Africa is for Africans, black Africans, right? And he ends up telling Mina later that after 34 years, that's what he told me. At the end of the day, people stick to their own. And then Mina's like, but he risked his life to save yours. And I remember his face when he came to say goodbye and you didn't look at his face. Yeah. So he has this grudge against his one friend. But I don't think his friend was like, I don't like you and I hate your people. I think his friend was like, this is going to get a fuck. Like, this situation is fucked up for you. Leave now. Yeah. You know?
And he came to say goodbye to them. And yeah, you're right. Mina's dad wouldn't look at him. It was. Yeah. I mean, obviously a very sad situation, and it gets even sadder when he does go back to Uganda. But I understand where he's coming from, I guess, because if someone told him black is only for black, and then 3 years later the daughter is with Demetrius, then he's gonna have a flashback and be like, no, you can't be with the black guy. Even though I'm from a black country and I almost identify as black, because during that wedding scene, by the way, in the beginning, Mr. Patel's wedding, everyone's wearing shalwar kameez and stuff, and he's wearing that Ugandan robe.
Yeah. So after all that, Demetrius decides to hire this sleazy white lawyer to sue and push for like a settlement. So that lawyer comes and talks to Mina's dad and Patel uncle who can't get laid. And Mina's dad knows it's like a dubious claim because he was a lawyer back in Uganda. So he's arguing with the guy. But the uncle that owns the hotel, Patel uncle, he's in a bad mood and hasn't gotten laid. So he's like to Mina's dad, you guys need to leave. You just cause me trouble all the time. And so Mina's family decides like, to basically leave and go back to Uganda because Mina's dad's like, I have this court date anyways. This guy doesn't want us to stay here. Let's just freaking go. Right. And his wife is kind of skeptical, but the family ends up starting to pack and leave. But Mina, obviously, her heart can't let her go without trying to see Demetrius. So she goes like all around town trying to find him. She finally comes to his dad's restaurant, which is owned by Karen. So the dad's like nervous about her coming in. But the dad finally like tells her where Demetrius is and chases him down, finds him. He comes out, looks at her, walks past her, gets in his car, drives away. And then she's like chasing him in Patel Uncle's car that she stole again. And she finally gets him to pull over into a gas station and they have this penultimate conversation where he rails into her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He rails into her about like his business suffering and what has happened because of her and their relationship. And she yells back saying that he's the one that chased her. And he says, you didn't tell me your family had trouble with black folks. And she says, you never asked me anything about myself because you were trying to make Alicia jealous, which is what we talked about earlier. And then he says, well, that was true at first, but I never thought I'd fall in love with you. And then that's all she needed to hear. And she asks him if she can come with him out of town, wherever he's going to start his new business, because he has to leave town to start his new business now because she ruined his reputation. And obviously they decide to run away together.
Oh my God.
This is so weird too, because this was really quick, right? And he calls and tells his dad. His dad's like, okay, I've never seen you this happy. Have fun. And then Mina calls the hotel and Patel Uncle asks for his car back. And she's like, don't worry, I've left your car at so-and-so place and Demetrius is going to drop the lawsuit. And then her mom comes in and she has this really emotional conversation with her mom about not wanting to go back to Uganda and how she's going to work with Demetrius and stay in America. And they say their goodbyes and part ways.
Just like that.
That is, just like that.
And Mina's gone. Yeah.
Mina's gone.
You know what's funny?
So Mina's
they decide to leave for Uganda, right? Like we're talking about. It's the same day. And then she's like packing. Mina is. Like she just decided to go. And then all of a sudden she's like, I forgot my shoes. And then she steals the car and takes off again. So it's just kind of strange. I don't know if this romance is going to last, man. They can't communicate, either of them. And then the families all hate this shit. And it's just a lot of political turmoil going on in her dad's head. All kinds of shit.
She might ruin his business in the next place
totally
too, for all we know. I don't know.
She's going to find some other guy that walks up to her at some bar and she's going to be like, oh, sorry, Demetrius, I've only known you for 3 weeks. This guy seems cooler. Like, come on. This is insane.
Totally insane. But anyways, that's for a different movie, right? That's for like part 2 and 3. So Mina's parents go back to Uganda. And at this point, Indians are obviously welcome back to the country. This is like a couple decades later. So Mina's dad first finds out that his brother, Okelo, this best friend of his, the guy who he's had this resentment towards, he finds out that guy died in 1972. He goes to the school where the guy worked and the principal tells him that Okelo disappeared one day and they found his body randomly. And so it kind of gives you a sense like Okelo was maybe fighting against the supremacist aspect of the government and that's why he died. So it kind of, I think, dawns on her dad that he wasn't meaning bad towards Mina's dad and Mina's family. So Mina's dad then goes to his property, which is kind of in shambles, but it's still standing. And he sits on the edge of the balcony overlooking his beautiful view. And he takes stock of his life and how he couldn't say goodbye to Okelo and how Uganda is his home because that is where his heart is. And that's the end of the movie.
Really? I thought it was the other way around and he doesn't want to stay in Uganda.
But he's dancing with the kids at the end at some festival, like with all the people.
Yeah, his wife's not in any of those scenes. I think he goes back to try to find Okelo. I think that's why he went back, to apologize. But then when the principal tells him that Okelo died, Mina's dad says, I wrote him so many letters I never heard back. And I think he thought that Okelo was mad at him too. I think that's the reason he says that. So then he realizes Okelo was never mad at him because he was dead. He couldn't write the letters back. He says to the mom, he's like, I'm not going to try to get my property back. They have a scene before they go back to Uganda. So, I think he went purely to see his brother that he grew up with.
And for closure, maybe.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, interesting.
That was my take on it.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So let's do some tea time then.
Yeah, so Demetrius and Mina are living somewhere, apparently, I don't know.
In Biloxi.
In Biloxi, in Lust, and cleaning
Yeah.
carpets together. But so Mississippi Masala, as we've said a few times, was directed by Mira Nair,
Yeah, that's right.
Zohran Mamdani's mom. She's also directed a bunch of other stuff. You guys, everybody can look it up. Most famously, maybe Mississippi Masala, but then there's The Namesake with Cal Penn. There's Kama Sutra, which I totally remember came out in high school, but I've never seen that movie.
Of course you
I
remember.
totally remember it. I've never seen it. And then there's Monsoon Wedding.
Monsoon
That was
Wedding.
pretty famous.
Yeah.
So she's directed so many movies. I think she was like an it girl almost because she directed a movie called Vanity Fair with Reese Witherspoon in 2004, which was so Hollywood mainstream. Harry Potter came out during this time, during the Knots. Or is it the Knots? The 2000s?
The aughts, right?
And she directed Vanity Fair. So then Warner Brothers was like, hey, can you direct the fourth Harry Potter in 2008? So she was up for that movie. And apparently, I don't know how much of this is true, but there's an entire article about it. And she's actually quoted in it. She asked Zohran Mamdani, who's her only child, who was 14 at the time. And he's like, I love Harry Potter. This seems like such a Zohran thing. I love Harry Potter. I grew up on it. But if you make The Namesake, that's better for us because then it's like culturally appropriate. I don't know if that's what he said because he's 14. So she forewent the Harry Potter movie and she directed The Namesake. And then apparently, to go even further, Zohran was like, hey, you should cast Cal Penn rather than a big name actor.
Interesting.
So I don't know. This kid was 14 in 2008. So this is apparently she almost directed a fourth Harry Potter, but went for The Namesake instead. And then she hasn't done much at all the last 12 to 15 years.
He was a visionary in entertainment and politics. Have you heard about his latest scandal, though? So apparently there's like a right-wing smear campaign against him because he checked that he was African American in one of the boxes to an application to Columbia that he didn't even get in.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's pretty much gist of it. But I don't know, like...
Technically, he's African American. I totally understand that because he grew up in Uganda. He's not born in the U.S., right? Or is he?
I think he's born in Uganda. Yeah, he was born in Uganda.
So he can't be president. So I don't know why people are saying like have him run for president.
Yeah, but also these check boxes for race are so freaking stupid for anybody that's not clearly white or black or like entirely.
Now it's whatever.
Native
I think they got rid of
right?
a lot of affirmative action stuff, but I think universities can still do what they want to do. But I think if he went to both.
But even on census, even on census, those boxes suck. So for most of my life, I checked 2 or more races because I'm like, fuck this. I don't like any of these boxes.
Well, there was no South Asian box, but there is now in California. There is.
But they include Asian, South Asian, everything, right? It's not even its own separate box, right? Which is weird.
My daughter's school had a Pakistani option, but I guess we're a very diverse.
Really? Okay, maybe now. But even as late as during COVID, I remember I looked. And under white, it says includes Middle East, North Africa. It's like, how are those people white? A Moroccan person's white? Like, it's, I don't know. I think the boxes suck ass is my point.
I know. It was meant to, because back then it was black and white, and I think they were just trying to keep track of races, but then we don't move fast in this country, so whatever census designation type things that they had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they kept doing it. But you're right, Pakistani and stuff like that. I don't know how they know how many Pakistanis are here, especially if I was born here and I've never told the government I'm Pakistani, right? So I agree with you. It's really
stupid. Yeah. That's why the census comes out with numbers of certain communities. And I'm like, dude, you're really fucking wrong. I know more people from these communities than you have in your entire census. And I know I don't know everyone. So it's really
But
stupid.
He was born in Uganda in 1991. Holy shit, this dude's young. He's only 33. Mira Nair was married to another piece of tea with somebody with the last name Epstein in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Before she married she's divorced and married Zoran's dad in 1991 or something.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. But another piece of tea, guess who Zohran went to high school with?
I don't know. Maybe I do know.
Our girl Bucky from Muslim Matchmaker.
How do you know that?
Yeah, because she put it on her Insta story and I saw it on her Insta story.
He went to Bodine College in Maine, which is kind of wild. Must be a lot of white people.
That's for college, right? Didn't he go to high school in New York?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, same as Bucky.
Yeah, so he went Yeah, so him and Bucky went to high school together. It's cool, right?
It's really interesting because I'm looking at his Wikipedia now. He lived in Uganda until he was 5. Then they moved to South Africa. Then he went to St. George's Grammar School, and his father taught African studies in Cape Town. Oh, they only moved to New York City when he was 7, so he wasn't that young, I would say.
Yeah. Marjorie Taylor Greene said on Tucker Carlson's show, she's like, what is this guy? Like, he's only been in this country for like 6 or 7 years. It's like he came to this country when he was 6 or 7 years
He's
old.
like, been here 30 years, I know.
She should try reading Wikipedia in addition to the bills she votes for.
He also went to college with Hari Kondabolu, a comedian.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
So this dude knows everyone.
But Hari Kondabolu's older than him, right? I feel like Hari Kondabolu's like my age.
I was watching some press event, and Hari Kondabolu was introducing him, and he's like, we went to Bodine together. Let me see how old he is. Because Zoran's only 33, you're right. Unless maybe Hari Kondabolu did some like grad school or something.
Kondabolu.
Hari Kondabolu is...
Yeah,
he's 42.
Dude, he's old. He's
10 years older than
42.
him. Yeah, how'd they go to school together?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he went to
Maybe
Bodine
they just same
for
school.
grad school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why.
That's
That
cool.
actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if you want to keep going
All right.
and get really crazy, Hari Kondabolu's brother was in a band called Das Racist. Das Racist. It's like a hip-hop group with
Yeah.
a guy named Kate. There was 3 of them. But Hari Kondabolu's brother was in that band or in that rap group, and he was like their hype guy. I don't even think he rapped. And then the third guy in that rap group, his name is Heems, Heems.
Heems, yeah.
They know each other, Zohran Mamdani and Heems.
Oh, okay.
Like, they grew up together. And the reason why Zohran got into politics was because Heems encouraged him, because he used to write a lot for like South Asian stuff in Queens. So Zohran became assembly member for Queens for the state of New York. That's what he is now, I guess.
That's cool.
Yeah. So all these dudes know each
Nice.
other like that. Just like we know everyone from the West Coast, right? It's like the same shit.
Yeah.
Or of people,
Nice.
I guess I would say. But they actually seems
I
like
know of people,
he's
yeah.
pretty well connected. He literally says my life was very privileged growing up. Of course it was.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's that. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, with a new episode of Succession, episode 3. And then the following week, we'll have episode 4 of Succession and another throwback movie called Outsourced, which is available on Prime.
That's right.
And
Let's go. I'm going to go run into some truck and find myself a hunk of a man.
So don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Jai After Dark. Email us at jaiafterdark@jaiafterdark.com if you want to tell us anything negative, or write us a nice review and tell us positive stuff in the reviews, and give us 5 stars everywhere on all podcast platforms. See you guys later.
Bye.
Dun, dun.